review and discuss the water and sewer rate study results on December 9th. Work session begins at 5:30, and we'll get the other council members on the phone.
Welcome to the GCI Conference Center. Please enter your access. Thank you. Please stand by. If you are the person, you will now be placed into conference. There are 3 participants in the conference.
Okay.
And then I have to join.
So, as the city clerk is connecting with the contractor, I'll just check and see who is online. Councilmember Cease, are you online? Councilmember Osinga, are you online? Councilmember Demas, are you online?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Councilmember Casagrande, are you online? Yes? Thank you.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, thank you. Is there anyone else I'm missing? Great. So based on,
Tony?
did someone just join? Is Vice Mayor Baclan, is that you online? Oh, Councilmember Cease?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. For those on the phone, again, the clerk's office is getting the contractor on the WebEx, so bear with us.
Welcome to WebEx. Enter your access code or meeting number followed by pound. Enter your attendee ID or the numeric meeting password followed by pound.
Hello?
Hello.
Is that Brian?
This is he. How are you?
Oh, good. This is Brenda, and you're with City Council.
Hi, Brian. Hi, Brian. So what we'll do for the pattern of this meeting is we'll just go right into your presentation. We'll see if council members have questions. It might be a little difficult during your presentation, but we'll stop. So everyone on the phone, if you have a question, just chime right in, and then we'll take breaks and check for comments also. And then, Madam Clerk,
I don't know why I disconnected from the,
WebEx.
yeah, I'm still connected here. Let me just redo the screen.
Okay, and Madam Clerk, do we have anyone that's signed in to make public comments?
I have one person signed in.
Okay, so after the presentation, we will, please remind me to call that person.
George, I don't know what it's doing.
I just texted John just in
I
case.
believe you may need to grab the TV remote and hit accept and then back out and select the input for the airtime.
Say that again, George. I need to what?
TV remote,
TV?
that remote there.
This remote?
Yeah, click accept, click OK. Okay. Here we go.
And then you can select the input for the airtime. Probably an input button on the remote.
If somebody sees airtime, let me know.
Should just be an input button there to.
There's no input button on the, oh, there it is. Yeah. Input.
Yep.
Maybe he's on there.
We just used this on Monday night. I don't know why it's going through this whole.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, Brian. Sorry, public.
These are extraordinary times. We can.
Okay.
Is that a movie?
Yeah, that was
There we
right.
go.
You got
See?
it.
All right. Super. Okay, Brian, we're going. We've got you on screen.
Meanwhile, is everyone able to see the presentation, or would it be helpful for me to call out the slide numbers?
Both. We're watching, but there are people on the phone that would benefit from the page numbers or the slide numbers.
Okay, I'll do that. So are you ready to begin?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for leading this tonight. We'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, good evening, members of the City Council. My name is Brian Vance from GovRates, and I'm here to talk about the preliminary results for the water and sewer rate study. So we've had the opportunity to speak with most of you individually, and as you're aware, the water and sewer systems need a lot of work with respect to replacing aging infrastructure that's reached the end of its useful life. And based on the preliminary feedback we received from council, we took another hard look at the timing and the amounts of the capital program, and we also made a few adjustments to the rate design, and you know, as you're aware, there are virtually unlimited possible financial and rate solutions. So this meeting is an opportunity for everyone to talk with each other and determine a reasonable financial and rate plan for moving forward. So, here I'm on slide 2. Why we're here, as the city's last formal rate and water and sewer rate study was completed in 1993, or 27 years ago. So that's a very long time ago. And so what we've done is we've evaluated the revenue sufficiency and the existing rate structures, and we've developed a multi-year plan to fund replacement of aging utility infrastructure, as well as other requirements, and to also modernize the water and sewer rate structures. Right now, the current rate structures are kind of are not really common in the utility industry anymore. An important objective here is to avoid rate shock to various customer classes, and achieving rate equity will be a multi-year process, and it's not advisable. It's usually not advisable when it's been a while since your last rate study. It's not always advisable to fix everything at once. It's sometimes a multi-year process to get the rates to where we would ideally want them to be. So with respect to an overview of the utility, and I'm on slide number 3 now. As you're aware, the water and sewer utilities provide an essential service on a continuous basis. Public health and safety is a primary objective. They're also highly regulated. They're regulated by the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation and by the EPA, and permits require satisfactory operating performance. That there's a risk of fines or consent orders if there's non-compliance, or if there's infrastructure failure that causes pollution. They're also they're also enterprise funds. And the purpose of enterprise funds in government accounting is to account for operations that are kind of business-like activities where they're primarily funded through monthly use rates. And these are basically capital-intensive, quote, businesses of the city. I'm on slide number 4 here. Right now, as I mentioned, we took another hard look at the capital program, and we're recognizing about $7.7 million in critical capital needs to be funded by the utilities through the fiscal year 2029. And as I mentioned, these are primarily replacements of assets that are reaching the end of their service lines. You got many assets that are over 30 years old, and when primary of the 200,000 gallon Lowell Canyon water storage tank that has to be replaced. You can see it's heavily tuberculated. And again, a lot of your, quite a bit of your system needs to be taken care of because, as I mentioned, these assets are reaching their service lines. And a key takeaway is that certainly these renewal and replacement needs will not go away, but they will be more expensive to address in the future. I mean, obviously, if you have a pipe that's heavily tuberculated, it's not going to go away, but it has to be addressed at some point. So here is kind of a summary of the revised multi-year capital improvement program. We've reduced the total by about $2 million. We still have the same general types of projects that we're looking at, mostly pipe upgrades, and line replacements. And then on the wastewater side, we have a lagoon sludge removal that has to take place every 10 years. And we have assumed some of these project costs will be funded through grant assistance. And of course, the utility will be making every effort to try and get as much grant funding as possible for these needs. I'm on slide 6 now. And certainly operating expenses are projected to continue increasing. The historical consumer price index increases have been about 3% per year. Due to the regulatory environment and commodity cost increases such as electricity, chemicals, and fuel, utility costs do typically increase at a higher rate than general inflation. You also have a recent pay study, and you need to consider increased labor costs and benefits. And a key takeaway is that with respect to operating expenses, permanent increases in costs must ultimately be passed through to customers through user rates. And to the extent that these permanent increases in costs are not passed through, the operating efficiency would just continue to increase. I'm on slide number 7. Now, with respect to the rate study, a rate study involves projecting revenue requirements. And as I mentioned, these have been projected for the fiscal year 2029. They include your operating expenses, your debt service coverage, capital improvement program funding through rates, and any administrative transfers or reserve allowances. All of these make up the annual revenue mark that we have to fund through our system of water and sewer rates. So, the projected need for revenue adjustment. When we started out, we were kind of looking at combined adjustments of 9%. As I mentioned, we took another hard look at the capital program, and so now we're down to about the need for the water system. I think we were at 12%. Now we took another hard look at the capital program, and we're on a combined basis for both water and sewer, and certainly both most customers have both water and sewer service. We're looking at about 7% per year as far as the revenue. Certainly there has been some revenue decrease due to COVID-19, and that has contributed to the need for rate adjustments. But certainly from a best financial management practice, smaller incremental increases over time help to avoid future rate shock and higher catch-up rate increases. And I can't emphasize how important this is, because I worked with some utilities that have been dealing with a 95%, the need for a 95% rate adjustment in 1 year. I'm dealing with another utility right now that's looking at a combined 48% rate adjustment because they haven't increased their rates in about 5 or 6 years. So they're and another key takeaway is, as we talked about, inflation has been a part of life even during recessionary times. And so, as we talked about, those renewable replacement needs, they're not going to go away, but they will be more expensive to address in the future. So with respect to user rate design, and again, they're virtually, and I'm on slide 12, they're virtually unlimited for rate designs, and as I mentioned, we just need to come up with something that is reasonable for moving forward. So, of course, the most important objective is to fund operations, debt service, and capital needs. That's the most important objective, and certainly across the board or uniform rate adjustments are always an option where everyone gets the same percent rate adjustment. I mean, the most important thing is to enable the funding they need to take care of these projects. But although we want to make sure that the rates are considered affordable and competitive, we want to try and avoid rate shocks to any customer class, and certainly we want to promote equity. Each customer class should pay its fair share of system costs. And we do think that it's good to modernize the rate structures. As I mentioned, some of the rate structures right now are 1990s type rate structures, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And again, once again, it's a balancing act, and we can't fix everything, cannot always fix everything at once. So let's talk, and I'm on slide 13, let's talk about some issues with the current rate structure. Right now, the equivalent, as you know, a lot of the rates are based on equivalent residential unit relationships, and for non-residential customers, they're unrealistic. Right now, I mean, the ERUs do intend to relate a non-residential customer's usage to that of a single-family residential customer, which is one ERU. For example, each hotel guest room under the current rates is considered 0.3 ERUs. Each barber or beauty shop chair top is considered 0.75 ERUs. However, when commercial customers have switched to metered service, they recognize up to a 50% cost savings. And so that just tells you that these are not really meaningful or realistic relationships. And so a fundamental recommendation is to switch all commercial customers to metered service to promote rate equity. And based on, so far, I have not heard any opposition to moving in that direction. Another issue with the current rate structure is that these declining price blocks for metered service are just not typical in the water and sewer utility industry at this time. So right now, the current rate structure is the more you use, the cheaper the water and sewer. We have basically, as I mentioned, this is a declining block. So as your first 50,000 gallons for water service is at one rate, and then the more you use, it gets cheaper. This is the kind of rate structure you see on the electric side, but on the water side, either you have a constant. Nowadays you either have a constant volumetric charge for all metered usage, or you have actually acknowledged in the 1993 rate study report. But here, if we just look at the budgeted operating expenses, not even looking at capital needs, you can see that right now, the SMIC revenue is $54,000 for water, $28,000 for sewer, against SMIC operating expenses of $95,000 and $140,000. So there's a big difference between the revenue that's collected from SMIC, the SMIC area, and the budgeted operating expenses. So that is an issue. But right now, it's not really feasible to charge the full cost of service to SMIC at this time. And the state has occasionally discussed closing the Spring Creek Correctional Center during budget discussions. And if the customers were lost, many of the allocated costs would then need to be repaid by the remaining city utility customers. But there is potential for additional growth in the area, which would translate to more customers over which to spread the cost recovery. So the recommendation, and again, I'm on slide 17, I've been a little bit lax in quoting slide numbers, but the recommendation would be to continue charging SMIC the same rates as the other classes. And if development materializes, the city could certainly consider separate rates for the SMIC customers and possibly treat them as a separate service agreement. So with respect to monthly water user rates, and I'm on slide 18, with respect to residential customers, we recommend that we continue to have a monthly charge per month per living unit, and the 1 ERU per living unit is common in Alaska and the utility industry, but we would, our proposal is that more 3 residential living units would require metered service. And for the commercial customers, as we talked about, we would recommend having a base charge based on the meter size, and then a constant volumetric charge per 1,000 gallons for all usage. So we would get rid of that 1990s era declining metric rate. And again, we talked about having metered service for all commercial customers, and so far I haven't heard any opposition to that proposal. For large customers using more than 5 million gallons per year, they would be treated the same as commercial customers, but have more gradual increases because they would be the most affected by the proposed water rate structure changes. And then ship water, and this was a change from when we talked earlier, we do recommend that we raise the rates uniformly or across the board. So here's a schedule of the monthly water rates. This is just the base charges. As I mentioned, unmetered service will be for residential customers, and metered service, commercial customers would be required to be metered. And this is for 2021, we're not recommending any adjustments for unmetered service. And then after that, it would be about $5 to $6.50 extra per month each year. And here's where we talked about having a single volumetric charge for all usage for commercial, and again, getting rid of the declining block rate. And again, the ship water, we're proposing that they be increased across the board. So with respect to the effective cost per 1,000 gallons of the proposed rates, there's quite a bit of discrepancy, but under this multi-year plan, we're narrowing this discrepancy over 5 years. As we talked about, it's going to be a multi-year process to get the rates to where we might need to be, and we do recommend that once we come up with a rate design that everyone is comfortable with, we would recommend that after you have a year or two of data under the new rates, take another look at the rate design, see how we're doing as far as equity and that just makes a lot of sense. And we can tweak the rate design as we need to in order to get rates that we consider to be fair. So again, it's a multi-year plan to make the rates more equitable, and as I mentioned, over time, the city should monitor customer responses to implementation. Because anytime you change rates, you're going to have a customer response, and so we want to continue looking at the rate design until we get it to where everyone's very comfortable with it, and then once the rate design is in a good place, we could just have across the board or uniform rates from then on. And again, I'm on slide 21. Right now I'm on slide 22 with respect to the monthly sewer rates. We do recommend a monthly charge per living unit. And again, we're recommending that commercial customers have metered service. And here again, the sewer rates are not since the sewer rates are lower than the water rates. The dollar amounts are a little bit lower. But here again, you see we're not proposing any rate adjustments for residential customers in 2021, and then we're recommending a uniform rate for all sewer usage going forward. And again, with the same with the rate structure, with the water rates, we're just trying to develop a multi-year plan to make the rates more equitable. As I mentioned, there's a large discrepancy right now among how the effective cost per gallon the different customer classes pay. And so we're proposing to have a multi-year plan for each customer to pay it to pay fair rates. And again, we would recommend reviewing the rate structure as you get more data, get data under the new rates. So with respect to the comparison of the monthly charges, as I mentioned, we're not proposing to raise rates for residential customers in 2021, and even in the multi-year plan, by the end of year 5, you'd be around what the city of Kodiak is targeting right now. So we look at affordability and in these, and I'll talk about affordability in a minute, but we do believe that this is a reasonable and affordable solution. But it's important to recognize that a comparison is not a report card on how well a utility is performing, because there are a lot of reasons why use rates differ among utilities, and that can include whether you have customers that are spread out versus close together, the level of capital improvements you need, your water supply. If you're treating fresh water, you're going to have you have lower treatment costs than if you're treating salt water. It's just a lot of different reasons why rates differ among utilities. A lot of utilities will have transfers to the general fund. So it's a nice discussion item, but it's not a report card on how well the utility is performing. So as I mentioned, we talked about affordability, and I recognize that Seward has some areas that with high median has some high income levels and some low be less than 4.5%. So by utility industry standards, this rate plan, and we're anticipating to remain below 4.5% of median household income for the next 10 years. And so by utility industry standards, this is considered an affordable plan. And another thing to look at is, and again, the residential customers have unmetered service, but just assuming a 6,000 gallon level of usage, we divide $116.42 by 6,000 gallons. That translates to about 1.9 cents per gallon for water and sewer service. So you compare 1.9 cents per gallon to a gallon of some other commodity you might buy, like bottled water or milk or something. And it just helps to communicate the value of water and sewer service. So certainly we're also proposing changes to, I guess they would be noted, they're noted as special charges or miscellaneous charges. And we took a look at that, and those are in the draft tariffs. And we looked at the current utility costs to provide service and as well as comparison of similar charges of other Alaska utilities and city policies. And certainly we are proposing
Brian,
we're proposing infrastructure charges to,
Brian,
that would be
can
separate.
you stop, please?
You're,
Brian,
you might not, can't hear us. You're breaking up just a little bit.
can you go back a bit in your conversation? Your telephone connection was breaking up and we lost.
Oh,
Oh,
you can't.
shoot.
Yeah, we're still losing you, Brian. You're really breaking up where we're just getting like parts of your words as you go.
We were doing so.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not coming in well, Brian, if you can hear us. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, you can hear us, but we
Can you hear
can't.
me?
I heard that.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Better.
I can call in on, let me just
you're-
call in.
You're
Now
doing
you're
good
good.
now.
You're good now. Yep.
Okay, well, I always have, I can always call in, if, you know, I have, you know, I'm using, my cell phone as internet connection, so it should be about as thick as we can have, but unfortunately, I guess, yeah, I've got plenty of options, so one way or another, I'll make sure everyone can hear it.
Okay,
So,
you were clear through the end of your conversation about that slide. 1.9
Okay.
cents a gallon being a value for water.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so another thing that we looked at, and this is in the draft tariff, were other or special charges. And again, for those following on slides, I'm on slide 28. And certainly consideration for determining proposed other charges would be the current utility costs to provide services, as well as a comparison of similar charges of other Alaska utilities, city policies, and certainly we want to come up with a reasonable schedule of these other types of charges. We are recommending these separate infrastructure charges that would be separate from turn-on and turn-off fees, and that would be charged monthly to inactive accounts. And this is a very common policy in the utility industry. the base charges, into the base facility charges. And again, the purpose of that is just to keep to help the utility pay the fixed costs while the account is inactive. Some additional proposed charges, changes to the other charges, we do recommend the elimination of cents on some fees due to historical rounding. So if you needed for example, a turn-on, you wouldn't be charged $49.73. You might be charged $50. We kind of made the proposed rates a little cleaner, and we're proposing the removal of fees that are not currently charged or services not provided. We recommend, we've recognized some right-sizing of fees based on current cost estimates. We have the seasonal locate service fees were adjusted to call 811, call 811 or call before you take call fee of the no charge for the first locate regardless of season. We added a $10 per dump fee to be charged at the city-owned or approved dump site. These are special charges, and again, they're not a huge. Most of them are not a huge revenue source for the utilities, but they are just miscellaneous charges, and the changes are outlined in the draft tariffs. So, with respect to the requested council action, we do have a recommendation to propose to adopt a 5-year plan of user rates to help ensure full cost recovery and address capital needs, make sure that Public Works has the funding necessary to address the most critical capital needs. And certainly we'd like a 5-year plan adopted, recognizing that we are going to, as we move forward, we're going to continue looking at the equity of the rates and make tweaks as we get customer data under the new rates in. As I talked about, the rates are considered affordable by utility industry standards, and they're also competitive with those of other electric utilities. We recommend the adoption of proposed special or other miscellaneous charges that, as I mentioned, are kind of those changes are shown in the draft tariff. And in the absence of a rate study recommendation, we would that right now the existing tariff has the provision for automatic rate indexing, and that makes a lot of sense. We would recommend that practice to help help the utility keep up with inflation, so that you're not having to play catch up later. And as I mentioned, being in a situation like what I've had to deal with some other utilities where you're looking at huge rate adjustments instead of more modest ones. And then, of course, we want to monitor actual versus projected financial results, and that I think has been a continuing theme throughout this presentation. Is that it's going to take it's going to be a layered process to make the rates equitable, and we want to continue to tweak the rate structure as we get additional data. And certainly we want to also continue monitoring changes in economic conditions, customer usage trends, the regulatory environment, and then update the financial and rate plan as needed. And that concludes my presentation.
Great, thank you. Let's do it a little different. Let's see if there's council questions, and then we'll go to public comments. So I'll check online. Councilmember Cease, did you have any questions?
Yes, I kind of did. Did we get, I didn't see it on my computer that we got the new rates, and I tried to redo the one that I had the other night. Is that going to be posted for the new rates, or did I miss it?
The new rates, I think when he talked about redoing the rates, I think it's what was included in this presentation.
All right, but are we going to get copies of that
tariffs on
online,
there?
because I couldn't see part of the numbers.
Yeah, the
That's
tariffs.
correct. Like, well,
Go ahead, Brian.
that's what I think we, based on preliminary feedback, we increased the proposed ship water, rates, across the board, or uniformly.
So in Councilmember Cease, the back of the packet that was distributed does have the proposed tariff that includes the rates. Looks like starting on page, well, it should be 3 of 8 in the packet.
Oh, I didn't download anything since the last meeting. I didn't see it on here.
He doesn't have
So it's
this.
in the packet.
Yeah.
Is there that I could just go ahead and find it?
Yep.
Yes,
The
correct,
numbers?
correct.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I'm happy, if the council's pleasure, but I'm happy to, I'd be happy to show it on the screen if you like.
No, it's fine. I went along with what I had here from the other one. But there's numbers that I couldn't see, but I'll look it up in my packet. Thanks a lot, Brian.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Cease. Councilmember Demas, did you have follow-up questions?
Thank you. First, thank you so much for all of the information, and I do like the layout of the yearly increases. I feel like the increases every year are fairly nominal, and I feel like if that is, helping the integrity of our infrastructure, that's so important. It's good to be proactive on that. One question, and maybe I just missed this in the packet, was I agree with getting all of the commercial customers on the meter service to promote the rate equity, but I wonder, and maybe, like I said, maybe I missed this, but do we know what the loss would be on that?
Oh, that's a good question.
Assuming that the metered rate, I guess, assuming that the non-metered is paying more because you're projecting a 50%
Were you able to hear
decline
that
in
question?
customer payments.
Were you able to hear that question, Brian? Go ahead.
Yeah, and the rate design reflects the decrease in the ERUs and the increase in metered service. So that is, that's reflected in the rate design. Because certainly we need to, if we need that, certain amount of additional revenue, we want to make sure that we factor those differences.
Yes, okay, that makes sense, thank you.
Did you have a follow-up question, Councilmember Demas?
I do not, that's all, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Casagrande, did you have questions or comments?
I do. If I could refer to the citizen comment from Bill Kalusa that we were emailed right before the meeting, there's a couple just like equations in there. I don't want to take up too much time in the work session, but maybe Brian could address those questions that Mr. Kalusa has in that email and respond to us as council, or I don't know how long we want to take, but it's mostly just math stuff that, for the way that the ERU is, that people pay way more for sewer versus water. That came in right before our meeting.
I did see that this question. I'm happy to address them. Would you like me to address them now?
Yes, please.
So first of all, I do want to say there's no relationship between the base charge and the gallon charges that was reflected in that. I recognize that there's a narrower gap between unmetered service and the metered service rates on the sewer
losing you
We're
again,
starting
Brian.
to lose you again, Brian. You're starting to get choppy again.
Okay, so, all right, I'm going to, just call it. And that will hopefully,
Actually, now you're back to being fine.
Every time you threaten it
Yeah.
gets better.
So we heard you say there's no correlation between the base rates and then you started getting really choppy.
okay, am I clear?
Yes.
Cheryl,
Is my,
this is
clear as mud now?
Hey, Brian, Cheryl, Brian's answering a question right now. He was getting choppy, but now we can hear him, so we're gonna let him finish.
well, I can't see the screen, all I can see is, if you can make that big again,
Yep, we're getting
all I
there.
can see is everybody's.
What is she looking at?
She's looking at YouTube.
Oh, oh.
Okay, go ahead, Brian, thank you.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Because I have no problem just quickly calling in too, if we need to have a more stable connection.
You're back to being fine, so we'll just blame solar flares and let you go.
Okay, yeah, during some of the one-on-one sessions, we were having a hurricane out, a tropical storm outside, so that was interesting. So anyway, I'm aware that there's a larger gap for the metered service versus the unmetered service on water versus wastewater. Again, I'm comparing slide 23 with slide 19. But we have to, I think, we have to consider our starting point. This is what we've, what the city has been this has been this gap has, this difference in the gap has existed since the 1990s. If we're trying to fund a multi-year capital program, it makes sense to have a high amount of base charge recovery, because that you can have revenue stability. And to the extent that we reduce the base charges and put more cost recovery in the volumetric charges, that means that we do have less revenue stability to fund the capital needs. And so this situation has been since the 1990s. And so because we do need the revenue stability in order to complete the capital program, we're recommending that, we are recommending the base charge relationships kind of stay the same as what they historically been, but certainly that is an option if at the council's direction, we could certainly put more cost recovery on the volumetric charge. But as I mentioned, that you risk a little bit less revenue stability. So, but as we talked about, there's virtually unlimited possible rate designs, but I am aware of that situation. That was referenced in the email.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Casagrande, did that help at least kind of answer your question to some extent?
It's a start, yes.
Did you have a follow-up or other questions?
I have other questions, yes.
Okay.
My next question is, currently, water and sewer is charged by block. So, I have all kinds of bills spread out all over here. They're really hard to interpret without having tariff right next to me for different users. Anyway, what we're proposing, changing the metered rate, is to no longer have blocks. It's a charge for consumption per 1,000 gallons of usage less than or equal to 5 million or greater than. So it goes, my understanding is it changes to 2 rates, and that's it. There's no more block billing. The way it stands today, I just need clarification that we are in fact block billing. So that's the first question, and it'll change to a flat rate. And then the second part of that question is, let me see if I can put this, how would you apply, so if somebody reached 5 million gallons one time in the year, does that automatically put them as the large user group for the whole year, even if they only use like a couple gallons the other month of the year, they use 5 million one month, then do they automatically go into that category?
Yes, they would be, if they use 5 million gallons in a calendar year, they get the rate, and the reason for that rate is that, because of the current rate structure, when you're using, right now you can see that for those following on the point I'm looking at slide 20. Right now, you're using above 3.6 million gallons. You're at $1.57, and so I mean if we're when you have users that use that much, and you don't have many, you can see that we're proposing to increase the rate to $3.77. I mean that's what we're trying to do for the customers that have really large usage. We're trying to make their increases a little bit more gradual, given the fact that we want to try and avoid undue rate shock. But and again, this is so the vast. I mean, 99.99% of the customers are going to be under the 5 million gallon threshold and would be charged a single usage. This is just this table here is just to show the existing versus the proposed rates. In the future, it'll just say all usage per 1,000 gallons. It'll just say 629, 720, or whatever the ultimate rate that we propose. That council feels comfortable with.
And then Councilmember Casagrande, would you ask the first part of your question again, please?
Are we currently charging users block rating? So like the first block 1 is for how many gallons and it's a rate, and block 2 is for how many gallons and then the rate changes. Is that how it is currently being billed?
Yes. Yes, gallons is $6 versus 17 cents per 1,000 gallons, and it gets $4.92, $3.76, $3.08, 1.5. It's one in the industry that's known as a declining price block structure.
Is there any way
the
that...
more you use the more you use, the less expensive it becomes.
Councilmember Cas.
Is there any way... Sorry.
No, I was.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Is there any way that we could be provided a side-by-side comparison so that, right now the way I have to compare everything is to jump from a bill and then go to tariff and try to interpret it and then go back? Is there a way that we could see the block, like how many gallons per the first block it is currently to be able to fit something into what we're being proposed?
Would that be slide 20 that you have up right now?
Yes, to the left of slide 20, it says you see the 0 to 50,000 gallons, 50,000, 1 to 550,000 gallons. Those are what the current blocks are, and then it shows just the existing rate for each of these current blocks, and then as you see for the
that. It's hard to flip all over the place. May I ask another question?
Go ahead.
Actually, I'll just go ahead and skip until I can compose it better. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Osenga, did you join us on the phone?
Yes, I did, thanks.
I heard you click in pretty soon to the beginning. I didn't mean it like that. I just wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to ask a question if you had one.
Yeah, well, I was gonna make a comment. I think that a multi-year plan to do all the things that a multi-year plan would do, one of which is avoid a rate shock, I think is a good idea. The only question I had was, we're talking about looking at this again now. Who would be looking at these rates in the coming years to see if it's doing what we want it to do? Would that be this company, or is that the city doing that, or?
It could be either. We've provided the multi-year, we're providing the multi-year financial model to the city, and then the city staff can either do it in-house or hire a company. We're certainly happy to update, but I mean, that's certainly at the city's discretion.
Did you have a follow-up, Councilmember Osenga?
No, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And then I'll go to Councilmember Buckland. Oh, you know what? Sorry, I'll check on the line and make sure that Vice Mayor Buckland wasn't able to join us. Okay. And then I have a couple questions, or maybe a statement. So I just think the city needs to just work closely with the fisheries, our laundromat, and the Sea Life Center to work with them on these. And you probably have already done so because I see nodding, but we need to reach out to those high volume users. And then I also want to say that, currently we have a COLA, which raises our rates 3% every year. We have a cost of living adjustment, or we have an increase based on the cost of living adjustment. CPR, excuse me. Consumer price index, excuse me. So we already have our rates raising. So where it says, 7%, we would be almost raising half of that already annually, those increases. So it's maybe not even as much.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So it's maybe not even as much of a jump as it looks like on paper, because we would have already had increases built into that. But on this slide 20, I do have a question. So are we looking at increases in 2021? When would the proposed increases start?
We've assumed, the recommendation would be as soon as practical. I don't think we're going to do, I'm not sure how quickly something, ideally we like January 1st, but I'm not sure that we're able to do that. I'm not sure what the city.
So anytime between now and 2022, like anytime within this next year, we are going to implement the rate structure. Okay, that was my
I would
question.
say that yes, we would like to, especially at least by July 1st, a half year at the very latest, because we do have budget year coming up. And this includes our tariffs, which would be nice to have already done before we step into the budget. Helps to make those budgets go a little quicker too.
And that's where I want to make sure, I think we're a little late to maybe talking to some of these larger companies about their budget, because they would have already adopted their budget for next year. So that's why as soon as we can start talking to those large users, I think it would be important. Go ahead, sorry Brian, I interrupted you.
Yeah, I think that in my financial projections, in a model, I assume that we have, I want to say maybe a March 1st or April 1st. months under the, before we could actually get this thing implemented. Because as I mentioned, I wasn't sure that we would be able to get a January 1st implementation date, but certainly the sooner that we can get the rate plan implemented, the sooner that we'll have the funding for Public Works to address those needs.
Thank you. Councilmember Casagrande, before I go back to you, I might just open it up to the public comment that we needed to call out for. Is that okay?
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
The person that we are gonna call is Walter Young, who is the CFO for the Alaska Sea Life Center.
Thank you.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic.
So Councilmember Casagrande, let's,
He's calling back.
oh, he's calling back, okay.
Hello, Mr. Young?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi, you're on with City Council.
Thank you. We wanted to first say thanks for your support this year. Secondly, on this, we support what the city's doing here and support the city's attempt at a thoughtful and comprehensive plan to implement these recommendations, and we look forward to working together. We might want to do a little more analysis on this final deck, especially all the pages that were in the presentation, but not necessarily in the attachments. But we really appreciate your work here. Thank you.
Great, well, thank you. Do you have any questions for the presenter? We'll make sure that those extra slides are provided to you.
No other questions, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Brian, I don't know if you caught that, on our packets that we got out on the presentation that was sent out, ours ended at page 25, and so page 26 through, I believe you had 33 pages, or wherever you had the end. We did not get those as part of the packet, so if you can send those along so we can distribute those last 7 pages or whatever it was. We did get page 25, but not 26, 27, and beyond. We did get the tariffs also, but not the actual slides presentation.
Okay, well, I'll definitely remedy that then.
Thank you. And then Councilmember Casagrande, I'll turn it back to you. I know you had another question.
Yeah, I think I'm able to formulate my question, what I'm looking for a little bit better. If we could be given either now or later, an example of a user that uses 175,000 gallons in 1 month, what they would currently pay for the bill today for water and sewer versus what their bill would be in 2025.
And maybe what would
Sure, I have to.
oh, go ahead.
Actually have a little rate comparison table that can show different, any usage level and any rates that, and you can just actually play with it and input a gallon level and it'll automatically change it will automatically calculate the bill.
So can you do that one?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't have the, I have it for residential, I don't have it for commercial, but that would be very easy to put together.
Okay.
Can you get back to us then on that with an answer that we can give Ms. Casagrande to give that comparison
Absolutely.
and spread out to the others?
Perfect.
Great. Does that work for you, council member? Did you have any follow-up questions?
No, that's great. That will work for now, thank you.
It might even be interesting to do like 50,000 gallons and then that 175 for that class and maybe pick 1,000,000 gallons, or it might be interesting to do a couple options.
Brian, I'd be glad to work with you on that, and we can get something out so we can distribute that to the folks to show here's the current cost, meter cost per sliding scale, and here's the cost for the whichever year, if we pick 2025 or 2023, or maybe a couple, we could probably put them in there, and that's what it would be for 175,000 gallons first is what the question, and then, you know, like the mayor just asked, could we do it for 60,000 or a couple different ones just to give a little bit more of a real look for people to see what it is.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've done a few of these, and I might say that this one's very well done and very clear and comprehensive. So thank you very much for your work. And I know that data in is only as good as what you get out. So thanks for, I know that finance department, and thanks for working on that, Doug. Does administration have any questions or comments?
I have a question for you, Brian. So on slide 14, we talked about the change in rate structures and incentivizing decreased or more moderate usage. So could you kind of, I guess, two questions. One, is there any concern as we're switching to a model that incentivizes moderating consumption? Is there any concern about lost revenue? And then I have a follow-up.
Well, and again, I do think that we do have the majority of your customers are unmetered. Just have a flat charge per month. The residential customer base is by and large the largest customer base, and that's fixed revenue. I do think there's going to be some water conservation, and that's just something that's going to have to be monitored. And that's why I strongly advocate looking at this and maybe I even mentioned it in one of the slides that there could be water conservation, there could be lost revenue, and that's just something we're going to have to monitor and make appropriate adjustments to the rate plan as the city moves forward.
Okay, and then just as a follow-up question, so the other municipalities that you worked with that have switched from this current rate structure that doesn't incentivize conservation to a model that does, have you seen like a dramatic change in behavior, so to speak? And did you take that into your modeling when you looked at revenue as we switch?
Yeah, it's all, we do take a look at those kinds of factors. I'll be honest, this is a 1990s type rate structure, and you just don't really, I haven't really worked with, I've been doing rate consultants since, probably 2001, and, by that time, I was always, you weren't seeing declining rate structures at that time either. But again, it's just something to continue to monitor and make adjustments.
Thank you.
Great. So for the good of the order, I'll just check with folks on the phone. Councilmember Cease or Councilmember Demas, do you have any further questions?
I do not.
Thank you,
I
Council.
do though. This is Cheryl.
Yep.
I understood when we talked about all the commercials was going to be on meter. I thought they'd already done all of them. Have they not done all of the commercials on meters?
I'll let Doug answer, but he's shaking his head no, that hasn't happened.
No, there's still several that are not, and I believe we had a count, and maybe Brian, if you remember it, we went through finance and got the counts of how many we would have to still meter, and I believe it was up to almost like 100 or just over. And so we're including basically 4-plexes and up, right? So 3-plex and under does not have to. I think they'll be optional, but I think as far as this first program to kick this off and to go, we're planning that the questioning is still out there of how to implement this and who pays it, and do we charge the customer? Does the city pay it? Does the city pay part of it or add it into bills, or how do we do that? We did add a certain amount into the rate structure here to cover some of that switch. You know, we just didn't know what council's feelings would be as far as how to pay to get it set up. I think once we get it set up, it's certainly going to be simpler, easier for everybody. The questions at the front counter of ERUs and the different, you know, quarter here and 70% there in this room and that room, and it just becomes most of those go to, they're just metered, and it just whatever you use you pay for, and I think just to get the thing simplified is where we have to get, but we do still have that question for our council here for what is your preference of how we should do that, and if we do fund that, then do we need to build anything more into the rates? Do we fund half? Do we say, hey, we pay the meter, you pay the install? You know, we have to go through a lot of those to figure them out, and I think that we're trying to make a very good, simple system here and be able to make it so it's keeps being a simple system that we can all rely on and look at. And I don't think water conservation is a bad thing. I don't think here in Seward and in Alaska in general, we really, most places have to conserve water. There is definitely in the bush they have to, but we're blessed with very good water, very plentiful water here, and I think that just having a way that a customer or as a resident or business can look at it, they can kind of control their usage, and that's okay. And we have to, like he said, adjust to when we're going to monitor these things. Where do our revenues come in? You know, if we gain more than we thought, then maybe we can do a drop. If we gain less than we thought, we may have to do a little bit different change. But I think after a year of billing, we're going to know a lot more and have this system up and running more and more. And I think then as a 3-year we put out for the next study. But the really great thing with this is as we get this system and these spreadsheets worked out, it makes it so simple for us to plug in those numbers, and I would, yes, probably ask for a consultant, whether it be Brian or someone else, to plug those, because it gives us that independent look and shows, all right, if we change these rates, we're low on revenue or we're high on revenue. But it's not a full-on, you know, $30,000 study. It's just more of a quicker consulting thing, and it really helps us to keep our eye on what we're doing. Sorry, I got a little long-winded there.
No, that was good. Councilmember Cease, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you. And then Councilmember Osinga or Councilmember Casagrande, did either one of you have additional questions?
No.
No.
Okay. Well, look around the
I'm
room.
very sorry, this is,
Oh.
Mayor Bachman.
Hi.
I think I tuned in when the, sound was going off, so I thought I couldn't hear anything, so I've been watching on YouTube. But I just came back on just to let you know that I was here.
Great, thank you. Did you have any questions, Vice Mayor?
No, I did not, thank you.
Okay, thanks for letting us know. That's great. So I'll look around the room. Brian, thanks again, and great presentation, and I'm sure we'll be in touch. Thanks for your help. And I will close the meeting.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Brian.
Thanks, Brian.